All right, I think we're finally ready to go here now. Before we actually start creating content, before we actually start coding and working through CSS, I think it's important to just take a few moments and make sure that we are set up correctly so that everything goes nice and smoothly here for us. So the first thing that I want to mention is what's referred to as our local root folder, or sometimes it's just simply called our local site. Now, if you're brand new to all this, you might want to jot some of this down. It can be a little bit confusing at first, but how it works is we're actually going to have two copies of our website. We're going to have a local copy of our site, which is the copy of the site that we're going to be working on and editing and tweaking and all the rest of it. And then once everything's finished, we would take all the content that we've created locally and we would upload it to a live web server, thus creating a remote site, or a live copy of our website. So there's local and there's remote, or local and live, however you want to think of it. Now, how this works is when we're working on our local site, we're going to have all of the material, all the files, all the content that we're going to be working on is all going to reside inside one single folder on our computer. And it doesn't really matter where that folder is. Mine's sitting on my desktop. I'm using my project files folder here. Obviously, as you can see, you can have yours sitting directly on your hard drive. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't really matter what you call the folder either. I'm calling mine project files. Make sure you have your project files folder handy there as well, because I've given you some extra material. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that all this extra material all resides inside this one single folder. Okay? Then once we're ready, of course, we'll go and upload everything to a live web server. Okay, so that's the deal there. That's the local root folder. Now, the next thing that I want to discuss is the actual application that we're going to be doing our coding in. We've already talked about this a little bit. I'm going to be using TextEdit here on the Mac. It doesn't really matter, again, which application you use, so long as it's going to function properly for you, again, which we've already discussed. Now, before we really get tearing into this, though, just a quick note for our Mac users who also want to use TextEdit. What you have to do is you actually have to flip into the TextEdit preferences, and underneath the new document tab, make sure that you're set to plain text underneath format there. And then what you'll have to do is you'll have to quit out of TextEdit and restart it. Okay? And everything should be hunky-dory. All right, now for everyone else, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're inside this application that we want to use to handle all of our coding. And we want to go and create a brand new blank file. Once again, whatever that application happens to be. Okay, wonderful. Now, I know that my file doesn't have anything in it yet. That's okay. In due time, we're going to be throwing all kinds of great stuff into this file. But what I want to do right off the bat is I want to save this guy. And I want to save him in a very specific location on my computer. So follow along here. After you go and create your new blank file, go ahead and save this guy. So here inside TextEdit, I'm just choosing File, Save As. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to head into the Project Files folder, this folder right here, because he's my local root folder, right? My local folder. Okay, now the other thing that I want to do is I want to give this guy a very specific name. I'm going to call this guy index.html. Now I'm calling him index because I want this guy to be the first file that appears when someone navigates to my website. So when they go to whatever my URL might be, mydomain.com or whatever it might be, this is the file that I want to have show up. And in order to have that behavior, to have that happen, I'm going to have to call this guy index.html. So I'm not creating a CSS file here. I'm creating an HTML file, of course. Okay, and once again, I'm saving this guy inside my local root folder. Go ahead and save this guy up. All right, now that we have everything saved up, the next thing that we want to do is take a look at working with our web browsers and our code and moving back and forth between the code and the browsers. Let's go take a look.